Breguet, the namesake brand of the watchmaker who started it all in wristwatches. I mean, literally, the man who created the first ever wristwatch in 1812 for the Queen of Naples. This brand has been celebrated and patronized by Napoleon, Marie Antoinette, and Winston Churchill. Abraham Louis Breguet was born in 1747 in Prussia, but his watchmaking journey would begin in France as an apprentice before opening his own business in 1775 on one of the most significant streets in clockmaking history. It was also home to the first clock installed in France in 1370, a suitable bedrock for what would become Breguet's flagship. The dual-purpose building he owned is still inhabited by his descendants to this day. Under the rule of King Louis XVI, Breguet became well connected with the High Court of France and began making watches for high society. That's how he came to make a pocket watch of epic proportions for Marie Antoinette. It included a perpetual calendar, minute repeater, equation of time indicator, jump hours and minutes, and a shock absorption system. And where possible, it replaced all metals with wood-polished pink gold. An insane piece, although she never got to enjoy the pocket watch because it took him 44 years to complete it. Anyway, Breguet would thrive in Paris until briefly having to flee to Switzerland during the French Revolution. But in both Paris and in exile, he would transform watchmaking and set the standard upon which all other watchmakers would be measured. And frankly, no one has been able to make as lasting an impact in both watch design and manufacturing in the last 250 years. Among his many inventions, he created the tourbillon, which in his time served to regulate the forces of gravity in his pocket watch movements while they sat in the pockets of his patrons. He also transformed balance spring technology to improve precision with the Breguet overcoil, an innovation notably used in many Rolex watches. He also laid the foundation for the modern chronograph with his 1820 observation chronometer. And lastly, he changed the game for how watches were made and sold with his subscription watches that were mass-produced to 700 units available in gold and silver, and were pocket watches that featured only one hand for 24 hours. In 1823, he passed away and the business was taken over by his son and later his grandson. Then in 1870, his grandson sold the business to the head of their workshop, Edward Brown. Knowing what a valuable asset he had, the company would be in the hands of the Brown family for the next century. Under their stewardship, the company would continue to push the limits of high horology by inventing the first handless wristwatch and the Type 20 chronographs for the French Air Force in the 1950s. After 1970, the company would change ownership a few times before it was ultimately purchased by the Swatch Group in 1999, who would inject new life into the brand. By 2005, they would release their Tradition line, alongside 3 new patents. They would follow that up with an impressive twin tourbillon and fusée tourbillon, which improves rate regularity by providing a constant couple. Today, they are best known for their iconic designs and movements that honor Abraham Louis himself, mainly through their guilloche dials, Breguet hands, Breguet numerals, individually numbered pieces, which are a nod to the early subscription pieces, and their hidden Breguet signatures, which started when Breguet found out that people were counterfeiting his watches, so he put a small signature on the dials that was nearly imperceptible. The brand possesses a rare combination of unrivaled heritage, continuous innovation, and iconic design language that make them one of the most important brands in watchmaking history.